Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be discussing plant-based diets and how plant-based diets can help our health not only in the short term but also in the long term. Being stuck inside for the past 14 days because I've been in quarantine due to the current coronavirus situation.
You're in prison. Oh, God damn, man, welcome to the real world.
It gave me some time to think more about what we eat and how what we eat affects our health in the long term. When it comes to plant-based diets, the interesting fact is that plant-based diets are very accessible, they are easy to do, and you don't need to spend a lot of money on eating more plants and incorporating them into your diet. With the current industrialization as it is going and the current ever-increasing demand of high-caloric foods and foods which are faster to access and to provide a quick fix, so is the rate of obesity increasing. Obesity currently is a massive problem to healthcare institutions. It poses a massive headache. It has become an epidemic within itself, and the current WHO report in 2016 estimated that around 1.9 billion people around the planet are obese, with around 39% of the overall population being estimated as overweight. Children were also largely overweight and obese, where around 38.3 million children under the age of 5 being declared as overweight or obese. This doesn't predict very well for the future generations, as of course, as we all know, that obesity has an increased risk of heart disease and of increased mortality and outcomes later in life. So what is the major issue when it comes to our diet, and why are we eating more processed meals and why are we not eating more plant-based sources? As we know, obesity is always increasing, and the current rise in obesity is a major concern.
You're supposed to eat that thing, not scalp it. Well, daddy, all calories. You know where that come from? Watching that damn TV.
As obesity is rising, so does the increased risk of diabetes. Diabetes and obesity go hand in hand, and so does heart disease. As we know, diabetes and heart disease are correlated, intimately correlated. Diabetes increases the risk of cardiovascular events such as heart attacks, strokes, and also cuts our lifespan significantly, and also reduces the overall quality of life. Therefore, obesity is within itself a massive issue. However, the major causes of obesity are very complicated, as obesity is not caused by a single cause, but it has multifactorial causation. Especially, obesity might not only be caused by what you are eating, but it can be caused by your family history, by your genetics, by the environmental situation you are in, by the environment you live in, by your income, and by, of course, the social scenario you are living in. Now, when it comes to obesity, one important factor we should consider is the presence of food deserts. Basically, what are food deserts? Food deserts are areas in cities or in towns where people don't have access to adequate, nutrient-rich, healthy food. These food deserts mostly consist of convenience stores offering access to pizza, to processed foods such as burgers, fries, sweets, cola, and soft drinks. And of course, these foods correlate with the increment of obesity and the worsening of the current situation. If obesity is a problem within the area, by having no other option for you to go and eat, it's going to cause massive problems, because your weight problem cannot be solved by choosing other options of food. You have only one option, and therefore you are stuck with that, and that causes major issues when it comes to trying to control this spread of obesity. An interesting study that was conducted on how plant-based diets might help not only prevent disease but also reverse disease is the Dean Ornsih study. The Dean Ornsih study was a lifestyle intervention study that was carried out in 1990s by Dr. Dean Ornsih, where he took a group of participants and placed them on a lifestyle intervention, whilst another group of participants was used for observation. The participants that were placed on a lifestyle intervention showed not only a reduction in their risk of cardiovascular disease, but also a reversal in the cardiovascular disease that they already had. The participants that were on the Dean Ornsih study were analyzed using cardiac angiography, coronary angiography, where the patient's arteries are visualized in the cardiac lab, And the patients who had a greater than 50% occlusion from 61.1% went down to around 55.8%. Therefore, intervention with plant-based diets might be better at times or a better prevention than medical treatment alone. The Dean Ornsih study was one of the most important studies when it comes to plant-based diets because, as we know, nutritional science is very varied. There are lots of studies going on where one study says meat is bad, the other study says meat is good, the other study says eggs are good, eggs are bad, dairy is good, dairy is bad. Therefore, there's a lot of conflicting studies. At the end of the day, we always, when looking at a study, have to look at the evidence. For example, when it comes to consumption of red meat, a study which looked at around 500,000 participants by giving these participants a questionnaire to fill in on their dietary patterns, participants who ate predominantly a red meat diet had a significant greater overall risk of mortality compared to participants who ate a more vegetarian or plant-based diet. Therefore, the link between consumption of meat, especially red and processed meats, and cancer seems to be apparent, and therefore consuming a more plant-based diet can help us reduce the overall risk not only of cancer but also overall mortality in general. Another issue, one of the major issues which prevents people from going on a plant-based diet is the question of protein. Many people tend to forego eating only plants or plant-based forms of protein because they say, hey, I'm not getting enough protein by eating plants, by eating tofu or beans or lentils, I can't do that every day. How on earth are you going to get all the protein from just beans, lentils, chickpeas, and tofu? Well, basically, the physician's update that was released in 2003 by the WHO showed that consuming plant-based sources of nutrition is actually a viable thing to do and also provides most of the important protein sources. The essential amino acids can be provided by vegetarian and plant-based diets, and this shouldn't be a worry or a problem. However, when it comes to athletes, many athletes tend to worry about whether or not my protein or the protein that I'm eating is going to be enough for me whilst I'm training, or whether or not it's going to help me bulk or not bulk or keep me lean, Especially people who consume plant-based diets, being lean is not a problem. If you look at major actors who are plant-based eaters, you can see that they're most of the times lean. However, the major concern is with the bulking and with the maintenance of muscle. If you're eating a plant-based diet, which is varied, importantly it is varied and has a variety of various protein sources like peas, chickpeas, beans, lentils, sweet potatoes, whole grains, quinoa, oats, brown pasta, the more you mix and the more variety you are eating, it's unlikely that you're going to be out of sources of whole. Therefore, I don't think being an athlete, this is going to affect you significantly or not. Especially most of the studies online show that consuming diets which are plant-based is a really good way of keeping yourself lean, and also adding protein which is not animal-based to your diet is going to help you maintain your muscle mass. Although people might say, that eating plant-based proteins is not going to give me the protein I need to bulk up as meat would do, the actual data when it comes to recommending diets which are safe and effective and evidence-based is that protein, when comparing a vegetarian diet to that of a meat eater's diet, is more or less at the similar level, and you're getting more protein for less harmful chemicals. Because although we can eat meat, the side effects of eating meat is that we increase our risk of overall mortality, we increase our risk of cancer, we increase also our risk of aging, and it's basically gaining muscle mass and gaining mass, but also rusting your body. Weight loss is a major problem, as we said before. Obesity is always on the rise, and consuming a more plant-based diet can help us lose weight in a more effective way than, for example, following diets which offer weight loss but they also damage our body in the process. Meal replacements, for example, are marketed as being weight loss miracles, are going to help, they're going to help reduce your weight instantly or in a couple of weeks, but actually what are you eating? You're eating a bunch of chemicals mixed all together, which is going to affect your body in the long run. So although these meal replacement sources of nutrition might be utilized for you to get a six-pack in the short term, in the long term, if you continuously consume these instead of eating a more plant-based diet, which is a natural form of diet that humans need, you will end up damaging your body more than gaining the results you want. The advantage of eating plant-based diets basically is the fiber. When you eat more plants, you're eating also more fiber, and therefore eating more fiber affects the signals to your brain, which tells your brain whether you're hungry or not. Now, the signals which cause your brain to tell you, hey, I'm hungry or I'm full, are basically hormones. The hormonal signals which target the hypothalamus in our brains to make us feel hungry or satisfied with our meal are basically two main hormones, which include ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is a hormone produced by our stomachs, which tells our brain to increase our appetite and our hunger impulses, whilst leptin is a hormone which is produced by our fat stores in the body, and usually when we eat and store that food as body fat, we produce more leptin, and that is inhibitory on our brain and tells us to stop eating. Now, what happens in obesity and diabetes is that these pathways become disrupted, and we end up in a situation where, although we are eating excessive amounts of high-calorie foods, we are also constantly very hungry, and this creates a constant cycle of eating and re-eating, which increases our weight. Although we are eating large amounts of food, we are constantly hungry, and this is not changing the picture. The body signals to ourselves that we are constantly hungry because these systems are disrupted. Consuming a plant-based diet, studies show that increasing the amount of fiber in our diet helps us to reduce the negative signals in our body, helps to regulate these hormonal systems of leptin and ghrelin, and helps to reduce the overall further caloric consumption by making us feel fuller. The fiber in the plant-based nutrition that we are eating helps to fill up our stomachs, therefore reducing the amount of ghrelin released in the blood, that makes us feel fuller over the long run. Therefore, although you are eating more material on a plant-based diet, you are also eating less calories, and the less calories you eat, the less you're going to pack as weight. Of course, as we change our diet also, the basic metabolic rate is changed, and therefore overall plant-based eaters have a faster metabolism and therefore can burn off fat also while they sleep, compared to other people who need to exercise more than their plant-based counterparts. Alright guys, hope this talk was interesting. If you have more interest on reading about plant-based nutrition, I suggest you read a book by Dr. Michael Gregor, which is called How Not to Die. It's a very interesting read, and it gives us more insight on how plant-based diets can help prevent disease and help us lead more healthier lives. And as Hippocrates said, who was the father of medicine, let food be thy medicine and let my medicine be thy food. So take care of yourselves during the COVID times, eat healthy, and bye bye, see you next time. Thanks for watching and subscribe.